Hello, and welcome to another angry unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the Panther G medium tank. So the story of the Panther tank is pretty well known at this point, I would say, and there's a lot to talk about. You could spend easily an hour just talking about the Panther. But to keep things simple, we're just going to do a very brief overview of the Panther's service. So originally the Panther, or the Panther G, was to replace other medium tanks in the German army, such as the 3 and 4. Originally the design was actually much smaller than what the Panther would end up being, but the reason they made it bigger was because by 42 and 43, the German High Command kind of wanted to make bigger and bigger tanks rather than more smaller, reasonable tanks. That's a whole other discussion. But essentially, the Panther would be entered into service in 1943 with a reasonable front armor of 80mm, at a slope so it was more effective, and a very powerful 75mm gun. Now, of course, they were used first during the Battle of Kursk, and the battle was delayed for the Panthers to reach the front line, and during that battle, they had some pretty major reliability issues. I mean, there's the whole story of a Panther getting off a train car and then self-combusting. But the Germans would use the Panthers, and quite a lot of them. They made just about 6,000 Panther tanks overall by the war's end, which is pretty impressive considering they only started production in 1943, and due to just the size and scope of the tank and the complexity of it as well, especially compared to the Panther 3s and 4 models. Of course, the Panther in run-on-run tank fights was a pretty scary tank, but as we all should know, World War II battles weren't run-on-run tank fights. There's also airplanes and infantry and anti-tank guns to take into account, and a lot of Panthers would be lost to airplanes and infantry and anti-tank guns rather than just run-on-run fight with enemy Shermans and other tanks. In-game, the Panther G is a 130-point medium tank, available to the 5th Panzer, 116th Panzer, and 12th SS Panzer divisions, and it has 2 weapons. So for the weapons, you have the big 75mm cannon with multiple ammunition types, such as 5 APCR shells, 45 AP shells, and 30 high explosive shells. The regular AP shells have pretty damn good penetration at 185mm, but the APCR shells are bloody ludicrous at 250mm of penetration. But of course, it's APCR, so it does less damage than penetration, meaning there's less of a chance to make the tank go kaboom once you go through it. And of course it is APCR, so it's not going to be doing a lot of penetration at long range. It's really more used for shorter range engagements. It's a very powerful gun, as you can tell. And the high explosive shells are pretty adequate. They're nothing really all that much to talk about. And then you got 2 machine guns. If we pop down to the miscellaneous stats, it has 130mm of frontal armor, strong top armor, 50mm on the side, and 45mm on the back. It goes 34km off-road, 45km on the road, very bad stealth, and very low optics. So in battle, the Panther G is one of the most powerful Axis heavy tanks, even though technically it's a medium tank, but we're not getting to that semantic argument here, available to the Axis, before you get to the real super heavy stuff such as the King Tigers. And for being a 130 points, not super heavy tank, but heavy tank rotation mark, it's pretty powerful. It has good armor, and it has rather good penetration ballistics with its armor penetration shells. Compared to the Panther A, I mean both for the same price, but just to be frankly speaking, the Panther G is a much better choice, I have to say. Even though the Panther A does also have a better availability, which is quite nice, the thing with the Panther G, it really just comes down to its APCR shells, as they are vitally important. Because the thing is, unlike in the Russian front in ST-44, where you got a Panther or Tiger out and you can just pretty much blow up any Sherman that you come across, on the Eastern front the dynamic's different. Because the Russians have IS-2s, and they're not that uncommon. Quite a lot of Russian divisions have IS-2s available to them, even some infantry divisions. And in a run-on-run fight against a Panther G, or any Panther and an IS-2, you're just going to lose. It's simple as that, for the most part. The reason being is that at a long-range 2km fight where both of the tanks are in the open, yes, the Panther has a higher rate of fire and it can penetrate the IS-2, but the IS-2 is more likely to penetrate the Panther with its gun, and it has a better armor layout in the Panther, even side armor of the IS, is pretty nasty stuff. And it can usually survive suppression a little bit better, where I find Panthers get a little bit more panicked easily. I think it's due to the worse side armor, it just messes up their suppression a little bit more. So in one-on-one fights, the Panthers lose, is what I'm trying to say against IS-2s. So you really want the Panther Gs over the As, because those APCR shells give you the much needed advantage of killing the IS-2s. But even then, it's not that perfect, because you kind of need to get a little bit closer with the APCR shells to really get the most out of him, and you're going to be doing less damage on penetration, so you're less likely to blow up the IS-2 in an immediate hit, and unless you get a good gunner hit and knock him out for a little bit, the IS-2 is going to be able to shoot back, and if it hits you, you're dead. Simple as that. Well, apart from scary IS-2s, the Panthers can pretty much kill any other tank in the game, and it's pretty damn good at it. But it's also very susceptible, I find, to enemy aircraft attacks, as its weak side armor does open it up to being killed by high explosive rockets and being side-shotted from IL-2s with 37mm cannons. The Panthers are in a very weird position, frankly, in SD2, because in the divisions that you can get them, you do want them, because they're big, heavy tanks, and they're nice to have big, heavy tanks. But then, you can't just throw them in willy-nilly. You really don't want to expose them on the front line until you have a target to shoot. Really what I'm saying is you just have to be much more cautious with how you use your Panthers. Don't just stick them out in the open where they're easily exposed. You're gonna have to keep them hidden, keep them safe, and if you do that, they will serve you pretty well, even though they do cost quite a bit of money, but, well, you are getting a very powerful gun on a pretty nice tank chassis for that price point. And, yeah, that's the Panther. And I'm going to leave it off at that. This has been another Ring Review of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.